There we go. So the Global Ed Tech Academy, or hashtag GETA, G-E-T-A, is going on all summer long. There are over 400 presentations by presenters from all over the world on a range of topics. There's usually some Microsoft mentions in there, but honestly, it's about good pedagogy, about good teaching, and there's just something for everyone, from STEM to Flipgrid, for littles to college. We've got higher ed presenters. We've just a wide range, and it's going on all summer. It's really awesome. You can always find that at aka.ms/getaschedule. And that's where you can find all the presenters. I'm going to show you that in a little bit anyway. A little bit about me, if we haven't met before, and I'm going to do this one quickly. I'm a technology integration specialist, or a tech coach, here in southern New Jersey, and I work mostly with elementary schools, primary schools, teaching teachers. That's what I do, and I'm passionate about ed tech, and I show them how to use it. I am a presenter. I do some keynote speaking. I'm going to do more blogging. I did blogging. I took a hiatus. I got a new website, and I'm excited to be able to blog again soon. I have a Facebook page if you're interested in following. I just generally share education tips and ed tech tips there. It's called Integration Innovation. I own my own ed tech consulting business as well, so I have an LLC by the same name. I am a wife to an awesome guy named Matt. I am a mom to a wonderful boy, 21-year-old college student, education student at the University of Tampa. He's home with us for the summer right now. His name is Ryan, and I am a poodle owner. I have a miniature poodle who's here on the floor with me. Her name's Bridget, and she brings us a lot of joy. I'm also a passionate coffee drinker. I drink about a pot of strong coffee a day. It gets me going. And then there's just some of my hobbies I like to do. I also am an avid nap taker. I try to take one. I love naps. And I'm a new author. Right? I've never written a book before. This was my first book, and it's just what a joy, what an experience it's been to do that. All those badges off on the right. Okay, so I'm just going to sum them up with this. There's one over there that says something about being an expert. I'll tell you what, that's the badge that scares me the most, because I think anybody who's called an expert feels like they're an expert, but there's always more to learn. There's always something somebody else knows that they don't know, right? And I often feel that. I get imposter syndrome, probably like everybody else. So Microsoft, I do know a lot about Microsoft. I live in that space. I teach others about it. I know a lot, but every once in a while things come up that I don't know, which is why I'm so glad to be part of the Microsoft community, because if I don't know, I always know somebody who knows, and I can go to them and I can find answers for you. And so being part of this community where there are other experts who have specialties and things I don't know, that rocks. And that's something we talk about in our book. All right. So here's the story of where it all began. It was last July, and there's a picture of Becky and I, and a mutual friend of ours came to us at ISTE last year. You know, the International Society for Tech and Education conference was in Philadelphia last year, and we were all there. And our friend said, there's books on Google out the wazoo. There's, Google for Littles and Google Apps and Google for this and Google for that, Google. And there aren't really any books about Microsoft. What do you guys think? And we both looked at each other and we knew right away, yes, our heart could get into this. We didn't know what we were doing. We had neither of us had ever written a book before, but we agreed that this was something we wanted to take on. And so right there at ISTE, we kind of made a pinky promise, and we all agreed that this book would happen. Soon after, we were put in touch with Dave Burgess Publishing, and it's been wonderful to work with them and all the people that they have. They're the people who agreed to get our book published and made it happen on time. So from June last year when we said yes, July we signed our contracts, as you see in that picture right there, and then in June this year the book came out. So it's been a fun journey and a lot of work and a lot of fun. But that was our initial tweet that we put out on the same day at the same time. We kind of put that out. Ever notice there aren't any Microsoft EDU books out there? We're going to change that. And so we did. And this is a page from in our book, and I wanted to stop here and say, Sail the Seven Seas. And this is the framework that we decided on for our book. Becky and I, we share a brain in a lot of ways. She lives, by the way, in Seattle, so she lives completely across the country from me, and we never met once in person to write this book. It was all done remotely using Microsoft tools, of course. And when we were discussing, hey, how do we want to frame this book? What do we want it to look like? It was amazing. The ideas that she had were the same ideas that we had. And when we talked, we were just so synchronous on what we wanted to do. We did not want this to be a how-to book, right? We didn't want a chapter PowerPoint, a chapter OneNote, a chapter on, Microsoft Word. We didn't want a how-to book. Those resources are out there. That's, on the internet, you can do that. And by the way, by the time you write a book on that, it changes, right? Because of updates. So we definitely didn't want that. We thought about the framework. You're probably familiar with the framework of the 21st century framework, and they had 4 C's in there. So, it was collaboration, communication, creativity, and critical thinking. And we knew that some people have broken critical thinking into a 5th C. You might have seen that, where they say computational thinking actually uses a different part of your brain. And so they recognize that. So we had those 5 C's, and we thought this would be a good framework for Microsoft. But for me especially, I just for both of us, we value the community so much, and we just learn from the community. And when I say community, I mean everybody else who tweets anything Microsoft. I mean people who share things that they learn online on social media, at ed tech conferences, whatever. All of the people that have helped us, more than any of the other more than Apple and Google, let me just say it, Microsoft really is intentional about building community, and it's really benefited us. So we wanted to start and acknowledge that, and look at the last C. It was really important to us to share that when you have those first 6 C's in place, the 7th C, change making, starts to happen. And we see our students and our teachers doing really impactful things to not just change the face of education, but in fact to change the world. And they're using these tools. And so we kind of framed it, not in 7 chapters per se, it didn't end up being that way, but these 7 C's are the focus of our book. Hey, fun fact, just for you guys who are here on this call, because we haven't had a chance to share this, but if you look in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, there's that little picture of our book. Those little waves that are down there, we got to design our cover, and that's just like crazy exciting. There actually are 7 waves, and they're intentionally shaped like the letter C, right? So it's just sort of an insider thing. I can tell you about the boat too. The boat that with the stripes on it, originally we kind of had the 4 colored square Microsoft logo, but that's kind of a no-no because it's copyrighted and things like that. So we tried to mimic those colors, but not violate copyright. So that's the symbolism of the book. And I thought I'd give you a preview. If you haven't seen the book, this is our table of contents, and this is how it's broken down. And I just thought you might like to take a look. The community is the introduction, and I've told some other people, if you're like me and you're an introduction skipper, this is the book not to skip the introduction. I almost always skip an introduction in a book. That's terrible. Now that I'm an author, I feel bad about that. But this is one where we really get into the power of the community and what the book is about, and I'll talk about that a little bit in just another slide. And then it's broken into some of the other chapters. We've got our collaborators, communicators, creators, critical and computational thinkers, and the last one is our conclusion, is becoming change makers, right? And then we've got a couple extra things at the end. But if you see from this, it's very much not a how-to. It's a series of stories from educators from around the world who we felt fit into these categories and had ideas, and great ideas that they're doing, and they're using with communities and with students and with classrooms, and they're really inspirational. And Becky and I are pretty well connected globally. We have a lot of friends around the world who are smart and amazing in so many ways, and we thought, why don't we reach out to them, gather their stories, put them in a book, and celebrate them. And that was the idea behind the book. So you can see from the table of contents, it's very much how we frame the entire thing. It's a fun read because of that, because it's reading little tiny stories all the way through. We put some fun features into our book that we are so proud of. We are so proud of. So if you look on the left, that little symbol there, that W with the arrow coming out, that's a Wakelet collection. So in the book, there were so many things we wanted to tell you more about, or somebody we were referencing has their own website with more information, or instead of just putting a bunch of links in the book, we actually created a Wakelet and we curated those links for you. And so throughout the book, in the margin, whenever there's something that has a little bit more information in a Wakelet, we put that little symbol out in the right-hand side or the left-hand side in the margin so that you know, hey, you want to know more about this? If this is something that really interests you, hop out to the Wakelet and you can view that website or see that, that game that somebody created or whatever. So we're really proud about that. But I don't know, probably most of all, we are really, really proud of that Flipgrid AR thing that you see right there. At the end of every chapter of the book, we've chosen a voice from the chapter, literally like one of the people who we featured, whose stories we featured in that chapter, and we asked them to record a Flipgrid video telling their story about their story from the book in their own words and in their own beautiful global accent. So we have, oh my gosh, I don't even know what total it came up with. I think we have 50 some educators represented in this book. I'm not even sure what number we ended on. And some of them, 7 of them, are featured in these Flipgrid AR codes, one for each thing. If you have a cell phone, you can try that one right there. That's our friend Emma Nass. She's from Sweden, and she is featured in the first chapter, and that's her voice. Actually, I'm going to show it to you on the next slide, but it pops up in real time, and Emma's from Sweden, and we have somebody's voice from Wales, and we have somebody's voice from Scotland, and we have somebody's voice from Nigeria. And so these are global voices, and it just makes them more fun to listen to because they're men and women and teachers of all kinds of things from all over the world. To scan and actually hear them speak about their story, so touching, and it's just a really cool feature. We're super proud of that. The sailboat. So throughout the book, we have little sailboat icons, and those are get ready to set sail ideas. We have a few of them in every chapter. And what it is it's a go try it now idea. So we might tell a story or two, and then we'll have a little get ready to set sail icon like, hey, we just talked about Flipgrid. Go over to Flipgrid and look for this thing about, what did we put one in there? About being globally connected on Flipgrid, and so called, Grid Pals it's called. And so go try this and sign up and look around on there and see if you can find a Grid Pal. So we give you little challenges or little prompts or little something to try in each chapter, a couple of them. And the last one, we have anchor points. We have 3 anchor points at the end of each chapter, just sort of like bring you back to what it was all about. So they're just unique features that we tried to include in our book. Oh, and by the way, let me move this guy out of the way for a sec. If you look in the lower right-hand corner of my screen, there's a bunch of stuff. If you need me or want me for anything else before, during, or after this, there's my website, my email, my Twitter handle, and a link to buy the book if you're interested in that too. All right, let's keep going. Okay, our community chapter, and it was, like I said, it was so important for us to be the introduction to our book because the introduction to Microsoft is the community. And there's a quote that's highlighted in our book, and it says, hopefully this book will inspire you to dream big, be brave, try new things, and explore new possibilities in your classroom and beyond. All the stories in this book were meant to be inspirational and replicable. So everybody that we interviewed as part of this, with their whole heart, wanted to share what they're doing and would be honored and happy to help you replicate it and try it on your own. And we give you everybody's Twitter handle at the end of the book. There's a whole page called Fast Follows where you can reach out to these people and connect with them, and we'll help you connect with them. So it's full of ideas and it's full of promise. This book is definitely about people and their stories, and we framed it that way on purpose. So you're just going to read many, many stories in each chapter with all kinds of ideas, and certainly some of them will call out and speak to you. People from all over the world, people from 6 of the 7 continents. So it was pretty exciting. It's about good teaching. It's about, putting kids first. And also in the community chapter, we ended with something called the Microsoft Education Toolkit, and that was at our editor's suggestion. And this is what it is. So my greatest hope, I'll tell you, I don't think I've ever said this to anybody. My greatest hope is that people who teach in Google districts buy this book, and people who are straight up Appleians, whatever, buy this book, because all these tools are free and they're out there and they're available and they're awesome. And I don't think we have to stick to one platform or operating system or whatever. I think that there's great value in using multiple tools. And if I can get some Google people to take a look at this and take a look at the things that are in this book, that would that would be a bucket list thing for me. That would be awesome. The toolkit that we have here is just a little paragraph in the beginning of our introductory chapter of what is Forms, what is Flipgrid, what is Immersive Reader. So even if some of you are pretty staunch Microsofty people, there might be a tool that's listed here. You're like, yeah, I haven't really used that. What does that do? You can always flip back to that part in the beginning and just read a little paragraph that sort of describes what it is. Again, it's not a how-to manual, but it was for people who might be new to Microsoft or might be new to some of the tools that we named throughout the book. So it's sort of a reference thing that's in the first chapter. So far, so good. Alrighty. This is Emma, and I mentioned her earlier. Emma is one of the stories in our community chapter, and her story, well, I'm going to let her tell it, and I'm going to play a bit of this video that she shares. She is the Flipgrid story that we share through the Flipgrid AR code at the end of our community chapter. And Emma teaches in a very, very small community, very small village in Sweden that's so remote, and her students wouldn't normally have had any way to be connected to the world. But Emma makes it possible. Let me see if I can get her to share her story here.
Hi and welcome to my classroom. Let's open the doors. And welcome to Sweden. My name is Emma Näs, and I'm a teacher in a very small school on the countryside of Sweden called Jonslund. It's situated in a very small village with about 300 people. I always say that when I introduce myself, I say I work in a very small school on the countryside of Sweden. When I teach globally. But
and I'm going to take you back to the presentation because I don't want to give away the whole story, but look at the background behind Emma, and you can see where she's going with her story, right? She's got students who normally would have no way to know what's happening in the rest of the world, to talk to people from other places, and Emma has made it her life mission to make that not just an everyday occurrence in her classroom. Her students know other students from around the world. And Emma has this beautiful saying, and I'm going to get it not quite right. Lanny, are you still on this call?
Yeah, I'm here. I couldn't find the mute.
I know that happens to me too. Lanny, what is it that Emma always says?
She says that she wants her children to make friends across the world, because if they've got friends across the world, they're less likely to start wars in the future.
Perfect. I knew you could say it better than I could. I love that. And so Emma's just obviously passionate about getting her students connected. That backdrop that she sits in front of was just the perfect thing for her to tell her story. And it's it's about 5 minutes long, so there's more to it. Definitely an impactful part of our book. And remember, we have these throughout the book. All right. Our second section is about collaborators, and this is a quote it's just from Becky and me, and it says, those of us in the field of education depend on the ability to collaborate. We do committees, we have faculty meetings, we're on teams, and now quite literally Microsoft Teams. We work in departments, we co-teach and co-plan and collaborate all the time. Teaching would be much harder and surely less appealing job without the support and ideas that we get to share with other educators. And we talk in the beginning of this chapter about collaboration as teachers, but also you guys know, you in education, you know that they call it one of those soft skills, right? Soft skills that you have to get a good job. You have to be able to collaborate. And more, we're finding these are skills we have to explicitly teach to our students, right? Aren't you seeing that a lot of kids have a lot of screen time on their own and things like this, and unless we're giving them opportunities to problem solve and work as a team and work in groups and everybody has a role and a part and everybody's voice is valued, these kinds of things, that it's become a really important part of our planning and our thinking. And we have some educators, of course, in this chapter who do that beautifully. So I wanted to start with a story about Anna. Oh, I'm going to have such a hard time with her last name. Anna Diaghilev. She's from Russia. And she's wonderful. She's just absolutely adorable. Anna she teaches English in Russia for kids who are from like 8 to 17. So a wide range of kids. And Anna discovered Flipgrid, and she got hooked on Flipgrid. As a matter of fact, she went all the way up. She's a Flipgrid ambassador. She's very active in the Flipgrid community, and she's quite inspirational. And she had her students, she was trying to teach them English. Well, what's better than Flipgrid for practicing your English, right? It's video based. So she turned her kids onto something called Flipmoji Scenes, which is using emojis. If you haven't used Flipgrid, you can decorate your screen with emojis and different things. So the kids would create little scenes on their video in front of them while their face was still in the background of the video, and then they would tell a story as if they were in the scene. So an example is if you put all jungle things around, some palm trees and some jungle animals and things like that, and your face is in there, now you're a character in this jungle and tell a story, right? So her kids were getting a kick out of this, and they were practicing their English, and she noticed that they were getting better. They were really motivated by this. So she took it to the next step, and she was praising them, and everything was going well. And she said, well, why don't we do a research project using Flipgrid, and you guys will do something a little bit more robust here. And they started researching Russia and sharing facts that they were learning about Russia, all the while practicing their English, right? That's the underlying goal. And they were getting quite good at this, and she wanted to celebrate them in a bigger way. So she shared that Flipgrid out with the world. She shared it on Twitter, she shared it on Flipgrid and the ambassador community, whatever. And the kids started getting responses from around the world, from other kids and from grown-ups and teachers, people who were seeing these Flipgrid stories. Do you think their English got better? You betcha. They had an authentic audience. They cared about their pronunciation and their words and their text and their language. And they started really, really caring because they knew other people were seeing this. And this is all just through the power of starting small with Flipgrid, building on that, and then taking it global. And she gave her kids that opportunity. As a matter of fact, it's not in the book, but I happen to know that because of this, Anna has also connected with another Microsoft friend of ours named Kylie Kingdon down in Australia, and they've done some collaborative projects using Flipgrid as well as a result of this. So it's just, the impactful power of using some of these Microsoft tools to be collaborators. This, oh my gosh, this is such a great story. Melanie Lejeune is from Louisiana, USA, and she is a tech coach she's a tech coach and a librarian. So she's got that dual role at a Catholic high school in Louisiana. I don't know if you've ever seen the purple OneNote cape. It's like a silky purple OneNote cape you'll see some people wearing on the internet, and Mike Tholfsen from OneNote has one all the time. Well, Melanie wore one to school one day, and that's where this story began. She had students, a student came up to her and said, I want a cape. And she looked at the student and said, well, you'll have to earn it. And she had no idea what she was doing at this point, but then it sort of elapsed from there or evolved from there rather. She said, you'll have to earn it. And the kid said, what do I have to do to earn it? And she said, let me get back to you on that. And all of a sudden she decided, wouldn't it be cool to have OneNote student Avengers in the schools? So we, in the Microsoft community, a lot of us who evangelize OneNote, and we go out and we share about it. We have these capes, we call ourselves OneNote Avengers, but the student wanted this. She ran with this, and it is brilliant. She created a student Avenger program, and it just evolved, like things do when we come up with something on the fly, and we just kind of keep inventing and adding things until it gets great. And she did something great. She gathered some students who were interested in doing this, and she made sort of a test that they had. It was a test. They had to go through and demonstrate proficiency and be able to answer certain things. And when they did that, they got capes. She actually got them capes, and they were so excited to get their capes. But wait, there's more. She got them recognized throughout the entire school as the Microsoft helpers in the school. So these students, they don't have to wear their capes every day, of course, but these students are known. The teachers get a list of who the student Avengers are in the school. And if any teacher or student needs some help with a Microsoft thing during the day, these kids are going to help. and they're the ones that are called out and say, oh, can you go over and help Billy? He doesn't know how to, do this thing in OneNote or whatever. They are known throughout the school, and they actually keep everything that they do in a OneNote resource notebook. Sometimes Melanie adds things to it, sometimes the students add things to it, but they've really taken ownership of it, and she's empowered them to collaborate, form a team, and then collaborate with the school at large, right, to be the helpers, totally empowering students. Her story is phenomenal. We've got a link to it on the Wakelet, like we said in the book. And so if you wanted to learn how to do it, again, if you wanted to replicate it, Melanie's all about people doing that. She'll help you, and you can read her story and set one up for yourselves. I think it's a great idea. Be interesting at the elementary level too. And our next chapter is the communicators. I took one sentence from that chapter. Communication is the very backbone of education, right? It's what we do. We communicate well, hopefully. And I begin this chapter by telling a quick story about how when I was in grad school for school administration, my very first class, the professor had us brainstorm a list of what do you think are the top 10 qualities for leaders? And we, everybody had their quiet time, and then we got to share them out, and he was putting them on the board, and he was putting tally marks when things got duplicated, if somebody said a duplicate. The number one thing that came out from everybody had communicators, be a good communicator on their list. And we've all, been victims of not good communication. So we talk in this chapter about communication as educators, by educators, for educators, but also various ways to communicate with and for students. And so we get into some of those great stories, like this one. So Monica Limmer, I think I'm saying that right, Limmer. Monica is, she is an educator in New Zealand, and she teaches special ed kids. She's got students who have various physical and cognitive challenges and abilities. She's got some kids who are nonverbal and use assistive communication devices, right? So sometimes for her, getting kids to demonstrate their learning, she has to find unique ways to do that. And she decided to try Minecraft Education Edition. And if you haven't checked this out, it's different from regular Minecraft. It has extra things that you can use to assess and to assess, really. And she didn't know how to use it, which is like the best part of this story. She just didn't know how to use Minecraft, really, and she thought, you know what, I'm gonna go for it because I think that this will hook my kids. And she did. She put it out there, and she got her kids using Minecraft, and you know what, things started changing rapidly. It was so engaging for these kids to be able to work in a virtual world that she found them starting to communicate virtually using the tools within Minecraft. So there's a chat thing that can happen in Minecraft, and the kids were using this. They were designing and building things together that could demonstrate their learning. She had them building things that were relevant to the content that she was teaching. They were practicing their communication skills. They were doing builds together. They were putting in there's kind of like boards that you can put in there with words on them that give directions. And so they were using some of these tools that are unique to Minecraft Education Edition. And it just made such a profound impact on her classroom. There's more about that story in the chapter, but it's one of those that just kind of tugs at your heartstrings. Kids who were sort of non-communicative, and maybe that one kid there is a part about this one kid who wasn't really part of the group, and Minecraft made him part of the group, right, by bringing him into that community. Just a beautiful story. Lee is another educator. Oh, we have so many educators in each one of these chapters, and I wanted to feature them all on here. I think I picked 2 from each chapter. I'll tell you Lee's story, and then I'll give you another quick one. Lee Whitmarsh is from England. Gosh, I forget where the place is. He's from England, and yes. Lee is from, is it England? Okay, yes. And he had, oh my gosh, this is so profound too. He had his students in the little village where they are meet with residents from the community. So there was a need in this community. There were a bunch of people who had dementia, and he was put in touch with this organization. And so these people with dementia and Alzheimer's in this community needed some way to have their stories captured. And Lee and his class kind of got on that, and they came up with Sway Life Stories. And Sway is a Microsoft tool if you haven't used it before. And it does just some beautiful digital storytelling. It's kind of like, it's not PowerPoint, but it's not a website, but it's sort of a cross between the two. I would say more like a website, the way but it's intuitive and it's easy to populate and it's fun to use and it's just visually amazing. And so he taught his kids how to use Sway, and then the kids met with these people from the community. So somebody who with Alzheimer's, but also their family members, and the kids collected the stories of these people, photographs and anecdotes and things about how the town used to be and married life, and different things. And they chronicled their stories using Sway. And in this way, they also chronicled a bit of the history of the town. Well, all of this came together, and what I'm showing you on the screen right here is Sway Life Stories. They've put together a whole website where they have the Sway Life Stories that you can see, and some support and some awards that they've gotten for this. I mean, it's gone huge. Let me see if I can take you out to this site.
While you're waiting, yeah, Lee's actually Aussie. He's not English. He's from Perth.
He's from Australia, but now he lives in England.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
he's from England, from like the Manchester area, and he's just moved to Perth.
Yeah.
He's
he went the
amazing.
other
He is
way.
absolutely amazing.
On the other way, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. So everybody's transient. These are global people. But if I click on Sway Life Stories here, you can see, and thanks guys for chiming in on that. Here are some of the stories. There's some pictures that'll come up on here, I think. And everybody who contributed these stories had the option of keeping them private and not making them readily available, or letting them go public and be sort of this, public testimonial to the way things were going with their lives and with their stories. So just another beautiful, beautiful example. All right, let me come back to, I was here. And get to creators. Oh my gosh, I think I was most excited about this chapter. Wait a minute, I'm going back. Okay. So Lanny is on the call, and some of you know Lanny. I hope you know Lanny. I hope you're lucky enough to know Lanny. Lanny's story is also in this book, and he also has a beautiful story. It's part collaborators, part communicators, and he did an amazing thing. Lanny, do you want to just share your story? Do you want me to tell it?
Go on, you tell it.
Oh, okay. Lanny is really, really creative, and Lanny's also a Skype in the classroom master teacher, expert, whatever. And so he really, really wanted to use Skype in his school too. And he wanted to teach it to teachers. That was originally his goal. And, teachers, they get busy, and maybe there wasn't a whole lot of interest from them in the beginning. And he wanted to teach teachers ultimately, right, so that students could have these Skype experiences. Lanny knows that there's more to Skype than just calling your friend from across, the country and maybe talking to some friend that you know. There are guest speakers, there are virtual field trips, there's all kinds of opportunities in the Skype in the Classroom portal to connect. And he really wanted to show teachers, but since that wasn't going exactly as planned, he came up with Skype Club. Skype Club. So he decided to have a Skype club in his school where kids from the school would come to be with him at their lunch or during their down periods, and he would set up Skype meetings where the kids would come, and one day they're meeting with an elephant sanctuary, and the kids would leave these Skype sessions that were on their lunch periods and hanging out with Lanny, and they would go out in the school, and guess what? Oohs and ahs, and oh my gosh, I just saw an elephant, and all these great experiences. Well, teachers started hearing about it, and guess who started getting interested in it? Other kids, of course, but then eventually teachers came in too. And so next thing you know, he had the administration in there, and administrators, we hear what you're doing. It's amazing. How can we make this possible on a wider basis? How can we get our other teachers using this? And he got his desired result. Lanny, are you still running Skype Club? I mean, not now, remote teaching, but before we shut down, are you still running that?
Yeah, Skype Club's still running, and looking forward to starting back up when we're all back in September.
Well, I'm sure the kids are too, and the teachers as well. And how many times a week do you do that?
It's normally every Wednesday, but every Wednesday lunchtime. But then sometimes we also run it after school which means that because of time zones, if we do it after school, we're able to take virtual field trips to the west coast of America, where you've got some of the amazing national parks. So they wouldn't be available during the school hours. So we do it for an hour after school, so we can access more of the world that way.
But that's so brilliant, just brilliant. And I love that story. Love that story. By the way, Lanny's voice is the Flipgrid AR code for that chapter as well. So you can actually hear Lanny and see Lanny tell his story in a Flipgrid AR video at the end of that chapter too. All right, let's keep going. So creators, this is Becky wrote this line and I just love it. What if we gave students fewer parameters and more open-ended opportunities for creation? And guys, we talk about, we hit a lot of tools in the beginning of this. Becky and I just sort of mentioning various tools that people tend to forget about. Things like Microsoft Whiteboard, right? It's free, it's in there, it's in your Windows 10. You can just use Microsoft Whiteboard and people can collaborate on it and you can create great things on there. We talk about Paint 3D. So cool. Paint 3D is just really fun if you haven't played with it, and we give you some ideas and things you can do with that. A couple of those sailboat challenges are in there about things to do with that. So much fun with that. But we get into stories too, and I'm going to keep going just for the sake of time because it's so exciting about all these. This is our friend Maria Petresca. She is from North Macedonia. And she is a genius. We couldn't wait to mention her in this chapter. If you can see that image right there, she designed not only that colorful and beautiful OneNote, but she literally designs all those characters by using shapes in PowerPoint. So she uses PowerPoint as her creation tool, and then she'll put insert shape and she'll put an oval, but then she'll stretch it out and then she'll tint it a flesh color. And then she brings in a semicircle and turns it into a mouth. And this is all just layered shapes. She is genius. She makes the coolest clip art and the most attractive OneNotes. And she's just absolutely fabulous. And she was sharing a lot of this on social media. Microsoft got hold of it and they wrote some blog posts about it. Well, don't you know, Maria, because every educator in this community just loves to share, she created a 6-week course on how to do these things yourself, how to make your OneNote gorgeous and attractive and teach your students how to do it too. And she made that course available for free. It's still online. We have a link to it in our book. It's amazing. And just learn. I love learning from Maria how to do these things and how to create these characters. I'll never be as good as she is. I just don't have that creative brain, but she is definitely inspiring and she makes creativity fun. And Pauline, so Pauline Mass, I hope I'm saying that right. Pauline is an educator who's using MakeCode, and that's another thing people don't think about maybe all the time for creativity, but MakeCode and Microbits, you know, you can use MakeCode with a bunch of different things, but it's got a little simulator on the screen, and she's got her students creating things with coding, you know, Blockly coding. And when you have an actual device, you can connect the device and the things that you're coding actually turn up. So is this creativity? Absolutely. It's probably a little computational thinking too. And we tell the story about how Pauline has really made a difference in her school with MakeCode. Gloria is the third story from this chapter, and I should have put a color picture in here, I'm sorry, but this is really cool too. Gloria talks about OneNote. Her whole story really focuses on OneNote, with a little Flipgrid and a little Microsoft Teams thrown in there. But we reached out to Gloria because we've seen some of the things she's done with OneNote, and she makes beautiful, really impactful OneNotes for her students, OneNote class notebooks. Gloria she's great. She's from Spain. She lives in Ireland, and she teaches Spanish, and she teaches kind of a computer course too. So she's just got a lot of neat things going on. She teaches middle to high school level students and at an all-girls school. So she talked a lot in her story about how when she creates, she truly creates with students in mind. Everything she builds is, how well do I know my students and what am I going to do? What am I going to put out here to engage them? So she talked about how a lot of them right now, this past year, were into things like unicorns and rainbows. That was the rage. So she tries to put things like that into all of her OneNotes. Whatever the words or the pop culture things are that are going on, Gloria incorporates those. She's always designing with students in mind first, and of course content in mind behind that. And she tells it beautifully in an anecdote in the book. But this thing that I'm showing you on the screen is another cool thing she's done. Some people have found out a way to gamify OneNote. you can password protect each of the sections, these sections that are over here. You can put a password for it if you didn't know. And so they found a way, Gloria has found a way, and others have too, to turn a OneNote into kind of like a breakout EDU experience and to gamify it. So Gloria did a few of these with her students where she would have a welcome and there would be a little challenge on the front page and the kids would have to figure out a word or a series of numbers or solve a math problem. And the answer maybe to that math problem would be the code to get them into the next section. And so gamifying learning, that's what her students were into. And so she made these, breakout experiences. Here's the coolest part. Her students were like, can we do this too? Oh my gosh, of course you can. So she let them start creating breakouts too. She taught them her thinking behind it, and they started creating breakouts too that were then done and tried by other students in the school. So again, creating for an authentic audience and that pride of ownership. And that all came from Gloria just going out on a limb and really creating something that she thought would engage her students, and it worked. It worked so well that they wanted to do it themselves. So just another great story in the book. Right. Our next section was about critical thinkers, and we said we have a range of tech tools that can help facilitate deeper levels of thinking because it's never about the tools, right? It's the products and the software and the apps are simply a means to get the thinking to appear, and it's about good teaching. So critical thinking, we tell a couple stories in here. This is our friend Sarah. And Sarah is a high school biology teacher from Scotland, and she's using, oh my goodness, for critical thinking. She's been doing a lot of cool things with a lot of cool tools, and she tells her story really well. I don't think she's on the call. No, I think she's probably in bed. But what you see right there is an image.
Here.
Are you here?
I joined. I stayed awake.
Sarah, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here. Would you tell us what we're seeing?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you want to tell what we're seeing on the screen, or do you want me to?
You go for it. You go for it.
All right, you correct me if I make a mistake then. This is Sarah's story that we tell in the book. She's using, right there what you see is a 3D object, obviously, that she's holding up, and she's gotten that object from Paint 3D, right? So there's a way that you can go into Paint 3D and search for 3D images. And she was able to get the code from that and export it to something called Miniverse, which is part of Merge. Have you heard of the Merge Cube? So it's Merge's website. And they have something called Object Viewer over there on the Merge website. And so you can import the codes from Microsoft's Paint 3D, put them into this Merge thing. It generates a code so that when you scan the Merge cube with the Merge app, that object will appear in 3D. But not only will it appear in 3D, it's on that foam cube. And a Merge cube is about a 3-inch square, probably, cube that you can turn around in your hand. Anyway, so the kids can not only just see the front of it like Sarah's showing there, but they can turn it around and rotate it and look at the back. And Sarah said these kinds of experiences are making such a profound difference for her biology students who only ever saw flat 3D cross-section pictures like we all grew up with in their textbooks. Not fun. And now look at the engagement factor, because Sarah is innovative and she's just exposing them to all kinds of ed tech. So she went to Paint 3D to get the image. She put it into Merge Cube. The kids experienced it that way. She also then took that 3D image and put it into OneNote, which she then pushed out an assignment through Microsoft Teams. So she's putting all the tools together and she's layering them on. Are the kids able to think more critically about a cell and the functions of those things when they can see it in 3 dimensions and turn it around in their hands? Absolutely. And she's not just doing it with this cell, but she started finding other objects and things that she can use from Paint 3D and from some other apps as well. Did I forget anything, Sarah?
No, you covered everything. That's now part of my hobby, is looking for 3D objects that I can use with the Merge Cube now.
I love it. And you're so good at it. Sarah shares the entire step-by-step directions of how to do that in our book, and we put that in our Wakelet collection as well. So you can just go there, and if you're like, I don't know what this means, the object viewer, she literally typed it all out for us, and it's there. It's part of the book. Put it as a Wakelet resource, which, thank you. We all need that. Jennifer is another educator we feature in this chapter. Jennifer Fershore is, she's in Argentina, and she's got her kids using Immersive Reader because she's got an incredibly diverse array of languages in the classes that she teaches. A lot of them are Spanish, but she's got, and we name them in the book, I forget where they're all from, but there are like 7 or 8 different languages in her class. And so trying to communicate with all of them and to understand them, it's been a bit of a challenge where she is. So she fell in love with Immersive Reader because of the translation capabilities that it has. And so she's got her students who can take their iPads. I think they use all iPads in her school. They can scan any page and they can translate it into their language. Their understanding, their learning has gone off the charts. The improvement that she's seen, because everybody can access their learning. They're still learning, you know, one language is predominantly spoken in the class, but everybody can access materials for deeper understanding thanks to her bringing Immersive Reader into everything that she does for all these different languages that she has to support in the class. And look at that quote from her. She said, "The effects are greater than we can even think of. It's a life-changing experience for students because they can finally find a voice. They become autonomous learners. Isn't that what educating critical thinkers is all about?" And one of the stories that she tells about is there's a little boy who his mom actually cried at the amount of reading he was now interested in doing at home. I mean, it's changed the world for the kids that she teaches. Microsoft tools, right? All right, now we're into computational thinkers. I have just a quick story or two here for you. I'm trying to be mindful of the time. And so one of them, oh, we were so happy to tell Jen's story. So Jen is, Jen Saarinen is from, I want to say Connecticut. Oh my goodness. She's from New England, and she's just so cool, and she's awesome, and she's a Flipgrid aficionado, and she teaches math. And I remember when I first learned about Flipgrid, I'm like, how are you going to use Flipgrid for math? Like, I really couldn't think of things. Jen thought of things. Jen is really good at math, and she's really good at Flipgrid, and she put them together, and she's got her students doing some serious critical thinking and explaining their math thinking in Flipgrid. I was going to click out to an article about how she's doing this, but just know that we tell her whole story about how this has been profoundly impactful. Kids are sharing in groups, and then groups are analyzing the responses of other groups and defending or critiquing those responses. So she's really taken it to the next level to explain your math thinking and to go deeper and to think about what others are saying and be able to analyze that, right? Those higher levels from Bloom's taxonomy. I put my own personal story in there. I just learned Minecraft education this past year, probably 6 or 8 months ago. I went to a workshop for educators all about becoming a Minecraft certified trainer. And when I took this course, they introduced me to Minecraft Education Edition. There's this little dude, or I think it's not supposed to be a girl or a boy. It just is the agent. I tend to refer to him as he. But there's the agent. And in Minecraft Education, did you know you can do coding? So I remember sitting in this course and somebody said, all right, guys, we're going to give you a half hour. We want you to just like try your hand, you know, placing blocks and doing what you need to do, build a house. And I was like, okay. So I'm thinking, you know, I got to do a square and then put another set of squares, you know, on top of it and leave room for a door. And so I'm doing this and I'm right clicking and left clicking and making mistakes. But anyway, I finally get it done and I've got one good size rectangle down. And I know that now I just need to get on top of that and kind of keep building that up, right? And I'm not even up to the roof yet. She stops us after about a half hour and says, well, how did everybody do? Where are you? You know, and people were a lot further ahead than me. And anyway, I showed her my pretty rectangle. And then she showed the entire room, hey, do you know that this agent is a little dude that's in here, a little character that will do this building for you. You just use some basic code and tell him where to lay blocks and hit run and he's going to do it. No way. So there on the left, you'll see that was my first code that I ever wrote. And it was just telling him, you know, when the word house is typed in, you can kind of see from the code, you're going to go forward 8, or, you know, and that code didn't work because I forgot to tell him to place blocks. So he was doing all the movement and not placing anything. You know what? Lesson learned. And we want our kids to have this too, right? Dive back into that code, think critically. What did I forget? What do I need to add? How do I debug? And how do I go forward? And don't give up and quit, right? This develops grit and perseverance and all those great kinds of things. Before I get to this, Michael Harvey is also on the call with us today. I can't believe how many featured educators from our book are on this call. It's awesome. Michael Harvey he's also like a geographic transplant. So he's from New Zealand and now he's living in Malaysia and teaching in Malaysia, teaching high school science, right?
Yep.
Michael, you're using, I didn't put your story in here because you use every tool known to man in the story. When we tell Michael's story in the book, we're like, yep. And so he's integrated PowerPoint with Immersive Reader and Flipgrid, and then threw in some merge with OneNote and put it into Teams after putting things in Translator. Right? You're using all the tools.
Yeah. Yeah, I have been. Yeah, I mean, I guess I quite enjoy learning. So learning all the tools. I want to role model the learning to the students. So I have a little play first. That means teaching doesn't become a job. I just basically play at work. It's not even work, it's just playing. Yeah, and that's kind of what drives me.
And your students are definitely benefiting. I remember the part that you told us just about how you were translating into 3 different languages just to make things as accessible for your students over there. And I wished when we wrote your part that we could have bold-faced in that section of the book every tool that you're using, because I think you're using every tool that we mentioned in that toolkit in the beginning. It was the most brilliant explosion of come togetherness of Microsoft tools because you're using them all.
Yeah. So I've got, because I'm an international school, a large number of Korean, Japanese and Chinese students. So I basically translated all the PowerPoints that they have into those 3 languages. And I double checked it with the kids as well, just in case, because I don't want parents to complain if there's some sort of word. But yeah, with the Microsoft tools, I'm able to basically to give access to second language learners that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do otherwise. And that brings them in because it gives them confidence as well, because we can then discuss the English words in class and then link them to the presentation that I'm giving. And so they have an understanding of what that means in their own native tongue.
I would love to spend like a semester just student teaching under you and just learning from you, because I'm just so impressed with how you use all of it. His story's in the book. Read it, you're going to love it. And if you have any questions, he's so accessible. Michael will help anybody. All right, we're coming to our last C, which is change makers. And I put this quote because it's profound to me. And I just wanted to share it. We believe that the 7 C's that we celebrated in this book are paramount to enabling students and all people to become change makers. In fact, we believe that Microsoft tools and programs are setting up conditions to enable our students to become global citizens who are not just capable, but are compelled to actively change the world for the better. And we see it happening all the time. Here is Aluka, I always do this wrong the first time, Oluwakemi's story. She goes by Kemi. She is a teacher in Nigeria, and she's been using Skype. And her story in the book, and so I have her video here, but I'm not going to play it in the interest of time. I'm just trying to be mindful of that. She tells a story about how Skype, again, has connected her students to the world, and she's using like a computer and an internet connection with Skype to bring so much of the world to her students. She tells the story of how she did a Skype call with a place in the US, and it was a mystery Skype. And when they did this, if you've never done a mystery Skype, it's where people on both ends it's like playing 20 questions to try and guess where the other people are from by giving yes or no questions and clues. And so you generally have some kids who are working on a map and they're crossing off things it couldn't be, and you have other kids who are doing research on computers, and it's a really cool interactive experience. We have a link to our Wakelet about how to do that in the book too. And she was with a class in America, and when they started this, they realized they didn't have maps. Kemi's classes didn't have maps, and thus began a partnership where the school in America actually raised money and funds and felt compelled to send some maps of the world and of the US across the sea to Nigeria so that the students in Kenny's school could have these maps and whatever. And so there's a friendship that's budding, right? Change makers? Absolutely. Kids from America helping kids in Nigeria just because they had one chance to meet and they continued that friendship. So that was just a little story that's in there too. And that brings us to the end of our book. A couple other things I wanted to mention though. Working with Dave Burgess Publishing has been absolutely wonderful, and they have so many great things as a publishing company. And one of the things they asked us if we'd be willing to do was to create a book study. So we did. And so we have, I forget how many questions it is. It's 8 questions for each of 4 sections. So we broke our book into 4 sections. Each one has 8 questions, and they just do it in the most clever way. It's actually a slideshow kind of a thing where there are little cards that you can cut apart. It's coming up right now. And you can see here where there would be 4 cards. So if you wanted to cut these apart into 8 cards and share and have discussion questions with a group of teachers in your school, you could do that. There's a way to kind of gamify it in here, look, a wild card and switch rotation. Or if you want, we mimicked or we mirrored all these questions on actual slides. So if you were sitting with a group of teachers doing a book study in the library or something and you projected this up, you could just project up each question and do a roundtable and have people share their thinking. So we've created that resource and we're pretty excited about that. It was a really neat thing, and that is available also on our Wakelet. If you don't find it somewhere, I can get that to you. I wanted to share this with you too. I'm doing a lot more sessions for this Global EdTech series between now and the time it ends on August 27th. All the recordings that have been done by every presenter so far are available at q.org/get-a-recording. And so you can go and you can search those. It's Q's YouTube channel, and they're just all being chronicled there. So I know Lanny has been presenting for that. So his sessions are there. Scroll through and see there's just like a wealth of whatever. It's all free. And then the upcoming sessions for myself, for everybody, are at aka.ms/get-a-schedule. I'm going to click out to this real quick if you haven't been to this website, but I think you may have been if you found your way here tonight. But I just wanted to show you that it's we're on the schedule page, and you can actually look by speaker if you want. So I'll just do mine there. And these are all the sessions that I still have coming up. I think next weekend I have something just called Office Hours, where you just come and chat with me, which I would love if you just want to hang out with me. All the cool new stuff in Flipgrid, the things that they're going to release on August 1st. I'm doing a couple sessions about that. Or you can look by Microsoft Tool if you have a particular interest you want to learn a little bit more about, or PD Type. And they're offering master classes, which is a set of 3 sessions that you kind of stay with the presenter one week after another and just kind of deepen your learning. Office hours, which are just come and meet the people and ask questions, any of the presenters, and sessions. So all these things are being offered as part of this. It's just ongoing through August 27th. There's a whole lot. And then I just want to end by saying thank you. Thank you for popping in to join me today. Like I said, all of my contact information, all these things are down here. I kind of kept them at the bottom of the screen in case you wanted to screencast. And I do have one more thing in case you want to take a screen snap. Let me see if it'll come up. Come on. There it is. So people keep asking me if we're offering certificates as part of this series, and we're not. Microsoft isn't and Q isn't. But what I did is I made a virtual certificate, and I thought, well, let me put this up here. If you guys want to take a screenshot, if you think your boss will accept this screenshot as proof that you've been here and you need this for your continuing ed hours, feel free. I'm gonna leave that up there. I'll move this thing down out of the way. I'll leave that up there, and you can screen grab that if you want. And that brings me to the end of this presentation. If you have any questions, happy to hang around for a bit. I don't see anything over in the chat. And if not, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me tonight and learning a little bit about our book and the exciting stories and celebrating the educators whose voices we wanted to shine a spotlight on inside. And hopefully you found some inspiration or something that at least intrigued you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kathy. That was great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. And Sarah, I've sent